my thoughts. So we're talking about optimising your career potential, applying for scholarships and demonstrating something we call transferable leadership. And thank you again, Kitisena and Dr. Abi and all of you for having me. Okay, so what we're going to talk about this afternoon, we're going to talk about this interesting phenomenon called transferable skills. What is it and how do we get them? We're going to do a little exercise and do some thinking as a form of self-analysis to think about your skills and your happiness. Then we're going to talk about habits for success and happiness, crafting a winning CV, a curriculum vitae, which, as you know, is the primary document that you need not only for a job, but also increasingly for a scholarship, because, you know, scholarships are getting more and more competitive. Also preparing for job or scholarship interviews, because some scholarships, they want to have an interview to get to know what sort of a person you are. And then we'll talk specifically about some graduate scholarships, writing personal statements, and again, this is one of those documents that most scholarship applications want to read because they want to get to know you as a person. Because remember, if you're going to come and have a scholarship in another country, they're going to be working with you, they're going to be advising you, they're going to be talking with you, they're going to even be learning from you. They'll also be learning from you academically and culturally, and so they want to get a sense of what's this sort of a person. You know, what are they like? Is this someone who I'm going to enjoy coming into the lab every day? And also some new daily habits. So let's kick it off. Okay, so what are transferable skills? Okay, so I know some people are extroverts and some people are introverts, but is there anyone who feels like being put on the spot and having a guess, I'm sure an educated guess of what we mean by transferable skills? Does anyone want to come up and, if you've got a big loud voice, maybe you can project from the audience, or you can come and I can share the microphone with you. Does anyone want to hazard a guess on what we mean by transferable skills? Anyone? Does anyone want to nominate their next door neighbour to come and tell us what they think transferable skills are? Or should we ask the people who can't come in Habesha time, should we put them on the spot, or is that not fair? It's probably not fair, is it? Oh, I've got a feeling Kitisena, your current and future colleague, is going to maybe pick on somebody. Surely not. Let's see. Yeah, who feels like having a shot at telling us what they think transferable skills are? Does anyone want to have a shot? Or does anyone want to nominate their next door neighbour? That wouldn't be a very nice thing to do. Not so soon after Ethiopian Christmas, would it? Okay, so let's all agree then on what we mean by transferable skills, because I'm sure you all know what knowledge is, you all know what skills is, but transferable skills is a particular creature. They're actually a set of skills that can be used not just for one job or one industry, but across a range of different jobs and industries. They do not apply to only one job or area. They can be hard skills, and when we say hard skills, we mean very specific skills. Concrete skills like coding, for example, or soft skills like people skills. So is there anyone out there who can actually code, who can actually do computer coding? I'm sure there are, you're probably shy. Oh, there you go. I envy you. It's something I can't do but wish I could do, so I take my hat off to you. Un chapeau, as they say in Quebec, in Canada. So they can be hard skills, or they can be soft skills like people skills or leadership skills. So they transfer from one job or industry to another. Why are they important? Well, I'm going to suggest to you, and And I suspect that you might already know this, and that's the reason that you've actually come here this afternoon, because you are investing in your future and your community's future. Transferable skills are important because they can be applied to many different jobs, to many different contexts, and to many different industries. This is important, really important, because the economy is changing all the time. And the economy in Ethiopia, the economy in every other country is changing more rapidly and more rapidly all the time. And transferable skills that you carry with you through your career are skills that can be improved. They can be improved over time, allowing you to become even more successful in your career, in your job, but more importantly, to make you even happier in your professional life. And for those of you who came really early, I mentioned at the very start the importance of linking happiness to what we're doing. Not just other people's idea of success, not just something where you think you're going to make your parents proud of you. Okay, that's important too, but it's got to be something that makes you happy. Okay, what's the difference between knowledge and skills? Now, I've only been up here for a few minutes. We've only just started our session. So I'm not sure how warmed up you feel, but, dare I try again to see if somebody wants to come and grab the microphone and suggest what they think the difference between knowledge and skills are. So like I said before, Kitasen is very happy to pick on someone. Otherwise, you can nominate yourself, or if you're feeling really charitable, you can nominate your next door neighbour to answer. So it's up to you. But I won't be offended if you don't. We're still warming up, so that's quite all right. So does anyone want to come and hazard a guess, suggest for us what they think the difference between knowledge and skills are? I suspect I'm probably not going to surprise you either when I suggest to you, and you'll have to take this as my suggestion. There is a difference between knowledge and skills. They're both very, very important, but we need to know the difference, and we need to develop. We need to know the difference so that we can develop our knowledge and develop our skills. So knowledge tends to be theoretical, okay, from books, from other people. It tends to be theoretical. It tends to be fixed and specific to one job or area. Now, skills are more practical, okay? There's something that you apply to specific situations across many different jobs and different areas. So you can understand then why it's important to have knowledge and skills. They're both very important. They both work very closely with each other, but you can also appreciate why there's an increasing emphasis by employers and by universities that give out student scholarships for masters and PhD students on skills, something that's practical, that applies to new situations. Okay, so, right. What we're going to talk about now is we're talking about skill development. How do you develop these skills? Now, if we talk about developing knowledge, that's something that's fairly obvious because it's something we've been taught from when we're very young. You know, when we're really small, you know, we're taught to count, we're taught to read, we're taught to write. Okay, so we're taught a lot of facts. You know, you would have learned a lot of facts about Ethiopian history and history of the Abyssinian Empire, for example, and history of the world, geography, a lot of factual information that you actually learn from books and that your teachers tell you. That's very, very important. But how do you develop skills? Because skills are something very different, aren't they? We've just talked about skills as being something that's more practical, something that you can apply to a completely new situation, to a completely new job. It's skills that allow you to say, I'm applying for this job in in, for example, Bank of Abyssinia, okay? But you might say, I've never done a job in banking, but when I worked for Ethio Telecom, I also managed a team of 30 people, and we really did some brilliant innovations. And so you can convince the new employer at the Bank of Abyssinia that the principles and the skills that you have apply across to this new context, even though you might never have worked in banking, just to use that as an example. So when we talk about developing skills, there's a very important concept called muscle memory. Okay, and what muscle memory is how when you're working with your muscles, they eventually learn how to work more effectively. Now, normally when we think of muscles, we obviously think of, like, being a future Ethiopian Olympic marathon champion or something, don't we? That's what we normally think of when we think of muscles. We think of the gym. But also remember, your brain is a muscle, okay? Your brain has muscles. And also your nervous system. The nervous system that actually makes your mind and body connect, that makes your mind actually work, is something that is built on muscles that actually learns and then can improve the quality of your life, make you successful in life, and also make you happy, especially if it's moving you towards your goals. The question is identifying what sort of muscle memory do I need to develop? Is it muscle memory about getting up early, for example, and doing exercise? Is it about getting up early and studying? Is it about forcing myself to do 1 hour of study every morning before I check my emails or check TikTok or Instagram or anything else? Because the more you train those muscles, the easier it becomes, and it becomes a habit. So when you repeat a movement over time, the brain makes a long-term muscle memory for that particular task. Eventually, what this means is that it takes very little effort, or it takes no conscious effort for you to do that task. And so this means that it becomes easier. When you train your brain muscles, it becomes a habit. And remember, a habit is something that you feel like you're compelled to do. And it's wonderful when you're compelled to do a good habit, okay? A habit like going for a run every morning as opposed to smoking. So you can equally teach your muscles to develop good habits. You need less and less attention, and your motor and memory systems allow you to perform at your best with maximum efficiency. Okay. We started off this session talking about transferable skills, and you agreed with me that transferable skills are practical abilities that can transfer across different jobs and different industries and different fields that you can carry through your entire life and just keep improving and making yourself happy with. Now, in the United Kingdom, in Britain, they did a survey of employers, and they asked them, what are the most important transferable skills? And these are the ones that employers in the United Kingdom came up with. Oral communication or presentation skills, so the ability to speak or persuade other people to do something. Collaboration and teamwork. Initiative, so not waiting for someone to tell you what to do, but to take it and say, I know what we need to do, let's do it. Problem solving, trying to see how can we solve a problem in this company before I go to my supervisor. How can I solve this problem? Organisational skills. Now, organisational skills is a very big area that gathers a lot of different skills like time management. Now, Kitisena was talking about punctuality and the importance of punctuality right at the very beginning of this session, and trying to and Kitisena informed me that there's a sense of in the culture people talk about Habesha time and Faranj time, right? And saying to people, now listen, I want you to come and meet me on Habesha time. And they say, late? No, come early, because early is the new Habesha time, isn't it? Early is the new Habesha time. So, yeah. Oh, great, there we go. Fantastic. Prioritization, that can be quite difficult, isn't it? Like sometimes we want to do the easy things or the thing that's on top first, but what is most important to do first? Prioritization, planning and multitasking, having different things to do at once. Adaptability and flexibility, that's very important. It's also an important attitude. It's important to convey an attitude when you're going for jobs, when you're in interviews, and when you're also going for scholarships, that you're someone who doesn't think they know everything, or maybe you do think you know everything, but you know how to pretend that you don't. That's a good thing. So that you can show that you can work under different circumstances and you realise that you've got a lot to learn. Humility is a very, very valued quality, in people who are starting out in new academic pursuits and new positions. Independent working or autonomy, once you've agreed with your supervisor what you're going to do for the week, they don't need to look over your shoulder all the time, or you're not going to be, searching the internet every time they turn around. Written communication, can you write clearly? That's a very important skill. Very important skill to professional skill to send emails with grammatic accuracy, okay? And not write too informally. Because if you write too informally, the way you talk, people feel like you take them for granted. And if someone's more senior than you, that's very, very important to avoid that perception. Critical thinking. Can you question the organisation? And can you say, whoa, I don't know if this new product is really going to meet our mission. I think we can do better than this. Are you critical of yourself? Do you question yourself? That's very important. Do you question your assumptions? I know we all think that we have the right idea, don't we? I remember when I was about 7 years old, I remember a couple of new kids came into our class in the year. And we had a little class of like 20 students or something, and this one boy came into the class, and I remember thinking, he looks really strange. He looks really strange. We all look normal, but he looks strange, And so he was in the class for about a month, and then a new girl came into the classroom. And I remember thinking, gee, she looks strange, doesn't she? God, we're all normal. And then I remember thinking, well, this boy, Alex, who came also during the year, I remember thinking he looked strange. But then after a while, I got used to him. So I thought to myself, oops, maybe sometimes I make wrong judgments. Maybe I make mistakes. I make bad judgments. So maybe these people, I get used to them, and after some time they become normal. So I think it's important to, to question yourself as well when you're doing critical thinking. Resilience, okay. Are you someone who, gets back up as soon as you get knocked down? Creativity, find different solutions to problems. Don't just do things the normal way everyone else does. And finally, analysis and evaluation skills. Can you look at the way we're performing in an objective sort of way and gather some information and see whether it's the right path forward? Okay, transferable skills are really important because if we just take one country, the country that is the wealthiest country in the world, the United States, 70% of the economy of the United States now is not actually based on work with your hands. Like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, most of the work people did was like farming, was building, things with your hands. And obviously we need work with our hands, for farming, for agriculture, for building motor cars, for example. It's very important. But now 70% of the US economy is based on work with the mind. That's like service industries, like healthcare, professional work, the finance industry, and the information sector. 70% of the economy. That is proof that it's not just about learning how to make something. It's learning how to have transferable skills that apply across different jobs and industries. The World Economic Forum estimates, now get this, This blew me away when I read this, that in 5 years' time, 25% of the current jobs will no longer exist and 25% of jobs will be new. So can you imagine that? Like every 5 years, and 5 years is nothing, we all know that. I mean, you remember 5 years ago? It seems like yesterday, right? So just imagine in 5 years' time, 1/4 of the jobs are, and we're really grateful for the honesty of your sharing. It's really absolutely powerful, and your bravery is that skill development is a question of habit. It's something that becomes muscle memory. You've got to practice it. You've got to practice it, just like a skill of playing a musical instrument, just like a skill of learning another language. Many people in Ethiopia learn many languages. You know, people who speak English often only speak English, but it's about practicing it. And all of these are practicing skills, and they become questions of habit. Okay, now we're going to talk through some fairly concrete things about your job applications and your applications for scholarships. Crafting a winning CV. As you probably know, CV stands for Curriculum Vitae, and it's a summary of all of your qualities and achievements. And I'm sure you all have a curriculum vitae already, and you will know that the job of a curriculum vitae is to make it very precise and concise and very easy to see what your skills and qualities are. So you're not writing long essays, you're writing point form, usually. Okay, so when we say there are mandatory sections, I put it in inverted commas because obviously everyone has a choice, but these are the sections that really people expect to see in a CV. Once upon a time, it wasn't so hard to get scholarships. You know, people kind of said if you've got okay marks and you're enthusiastic, you know, you've got a scholarship. But now that it's more competitive, there are usually a lot of different documents you need to start thinking about. There's a personal statement. There's a research plan. You know, what project would I like to do? There's a personal statement. You know, who am I? What sort of a person am I? What are my achievements? What are my goals in life? What do I want to contribute in my life? And of course your CV, and of course your academic record, your grades, your marks. So mandatory section, so obviously contact information, obviously career goal. So with your career goal, it's a challenge to be specific but not too specific. I mean, you don't want to just say, oh, I want to be in a role that helps people, or I want to earn a lot of money. You know, you want to say something more specific than that, like what type of helping do you want to do, okay? But at the same time, you don't need to write, for example, I want to be the CEO of Bank of Abyssinia, because, I mean, there's obviously transferable skills that apply to different roles, like why not the CEO of, Ethio Telecom? Okay, it's more important to say you want to be a leader in an organisation that contributes to the development of my country or something. You know, that's quite specific, but it's not so specific that it excludes a lot of companies. There's a lot of companies in that. This is just one example. To be a member of a constantly improving team that advances the knowledge and skills of young adults, as an example. There are other examples from software engineering, education, medicine, that you can think of to contribute. Work experience, that's obviously very important. Like, what jobs have you had? Have you had part-time jobs? A lot of students haven't necessarily had much work experience, so that's why some of these other sections are also important. Sorry, I skipped that over. Education, that's important. To say what your high school education was, still at this stage. For someone old like me, I don't put my high school education anymore, because it was too long ago. So your education, and you say, you're currently a student at Haramaya University enrolled in ... say what your program is. And if you've got a very good grade point average, very good grades or marks, put that. And also what your skills are, list your skills. Optional sections, okay, and some of these sections might be valuable, especially if you haven't had much work experience. Languages you speak, certifications, like have you done any courses like in conflict resolution skills or something else, or you're certified at a certain level of the Oromo language or something, put that in. If you're an academic or a writer, or you want to be an academic or a writer, and you've actually published an article, obviously put that in. Any training that you've done, courses that you've done. You did a 3-day course on software development or something, put that in. And also, and it doesn't matter if it's about how to look after animals or something. It doesn't matter what it is. The more you put, people get a better idea that, hey, you're an interesting person, you're a well-rounded person, you're a balanced person. You not only study, but you also do interesting things. And you don't just do things for yourself, you do things for other people. That's really increasingly important. Any awards? Have you won any prizes, like academic prizes, for example? Or did you win a martial arts competition? Did you win an athletics competition, something? Sorry, I'll bump this. Volunteering experience. Have you volunteered at a shelter for people who are homeless, who don't have a home? Have you volunteered teaching Amharic to people who come from other countries? Have you volunteered teaching little children music? Have you volunteered entertaining people or reading stories to older people who are blind, who can't see, for example? Have you had volunteering experiences? Such experiences are very, very, very well regarded. Are there any particular projects you've been working on? What are your extracurricular activities? What do you like doing? Music, running, sport? Like, what are they? Bird watching? Are they to do with animals? What is it? In general, just some very brief general comments for your CV. Keep it concise, very clean and clear. Not too many words. Uncluttered, which means keep it very neat. Easy to read, that's why it should be in point form and attractive. Ask your friends or your colleagues or your supervisors or your professors, lecturers for feedback on it. Although the optional sections are not necessary, they show you that you need to be building different sections of your CV. That's really important. And it goes back to Kidesena, expressing joy that there's so many undergraduates here, so many freshmen here. It's wonderful, because this should serve as a reminder. Wow, okay, I need to actually think of my CV. What's my CV going to look like when I finish at Haramaya University? And you need to start building these sections. And it's okay to think about that. It's okay to think like that. To think, whoa, I've been so busy studying really hard, and I've been looking after my little brother and sister, that I haven't done a lot of volunteering. It's quite okay to say, I want to volunteer so that I can put it on my CV. What's wrong with that? You're still doing something good. You're doing something good, and there's nothing wrong with you having a benefit from it as well. So you need to think, what are the areas of my CV I need to build up now, right now? Especially if you have little or no work experience, or you're still a student, which you are, the optional sections can show that you can work with other people and you are reliable. That's really important. Because, when they say, oh, you don't have any work experience, obviously everyone has to start somewhere, right? So it might be a little bit more difficult, but when you go for your first full-time job, having volunteered in community organisations, having been the president of an organisation, having started a new club at university, having been the secretary or the treasurer of some organisation at university or in the community,
What that shows hey, I'm someone who can work with other people, and I'm also someone who can actually achieve things. I can do things. My word is good. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Okay, job or scholarship interviews. Some of these are obvious. Be punctual. Okay, we talked about punctuality. Very important. Punctuality is a sign of respect. Okay, which obviously means that unpunctuality is a sign of disrespect. Dress well, obviously. It's really important, especially for people like me who are quite outgoing people, extroverted people who like talking. Something I really had to learn was to be very concise in an interview, okay? You sound a lot more professional if you give an answer in 2 or 3 sentences that's a very clear answer to the question, and you don't kind of ramble on and on, with a question. So answer a question quite concisely. Okay, you need to give a full answer, not just a yes or no, but try and keep concise. And this gets back to the exercise we did before and why you need to keep asking yourself the questions and write these questions down. Write down your answers to the questions we've been asking you today, because you must have a clear statement of your ambition or your goal in life and for the next 5 years. Okay. You must identify any reason, and this next one's really, I've found very, very valuable, in my life, having come from, the government sector and the corporate sector before I was in universities, was I found it very helpful to be honest with myself. And when I was going for a job that I really wanted, right, or I was going for a scholarship and I really wanted, the most important question I asked myself is, why won't I get this job? Now, we have to balance this because as the lady said before beautifully, we need to love ourselves and believe in ourselves. But on the honest side of the ledger, I was saying, for example, especially when I was not far out of university, I would say to myself, right, I'm going for a job that's really, to be honest, probably X amount of dollars more than I'm really qualified to do, or I'm going to be supervising people and I've never supervised anyone before. So you've got to say to yourself, why won't I get this job? And in my case, it might have been, for example, I've never had any experience supervising someone. Let's say that was my situation like many years ago. Now I have had jobs supervising people, but I hadn't when I was younger. So then you've got to think to yourself, how am I going to address that? So your goal in your interview should be, your secondary goal should be to reiterate what you're good at, but your first goal should be to fix people's impression in their head about why they wouldn't give you the job. In other words, I know they're going to look at me as let's say a 21-year-old or a 23-year-old and say, but you've never supervised anyone. So what's my story? What's my response? So I make sure no matter what question they ask me, I tell them a story about how when I was the secretary or the president of a club at university and I had to delegate responsibility to other people and I had to then go and check up and make sure that they'd done it. And some people I had to be a bit assertive and say, come on, you said you'd do that. We're really counting on you. Yeah, okay. So there's a lot of value in trying to redress or try and address the reasons you might get something. For example, I've got a quote here. I realise that I haven't done this job before, but my work in some other job gave me all of the necessary skills. For example, and then be specific. Final point I want to make is it's very important to have war stories. We talked before about what's something you're really proud of. A war story is like, obviously people use that analogy when, they come from World War II or World War I, or when the Italians invaded Ethiopia, people are going, oh, back in those days there was no food in Addis Ababa, we had to, or whatever, or we had to sneak around at night or talk in codes or something so the Italians wouldn't get angry or whatever. That's where that phrase comes from. War is a difficult time, and all of our countries, and sadly Ethiopia at the moment knows war, so that's where that nickname comes from. Stories that we have from the past, something that makes you sound good. Start to think to yourself, what are my war stories? Pretend you're an old lady or an old man and you've got grandchildren. What am I going to boast? What are some of the funny things I've done? What are my great achievements? War stories are very important because when you're in an interview and you're trying to get a job or you're trying to get a scholarship, it's okay to say, I'm someone who is capable of leading a team. Imagine that, they'll go, okay, fair enough, whatever, And if I say, our university had a dramatic society. We wanted to put on a play, like a musical performance. We wanted to put on a musical performance, and we had 2 weeks to go, and no one was ready. I gathered everybody together, and I said, do you want to embarrass yourself in front of all of your family and friends, or are we going to rehearse every day? And everyone agreed to rehearse every day. Now, what's the difference between that story and me saying, oh, I lead teams well? With the story, someone puts themselves in my shoes and they go, oh, he just told a dramatic story. I can imagine him saying, hey, are we going to embarrass ourselves in front of our friends and family? I can imagine him doing that. And I can also imagine him working for us, working in our organisation, or being in my lab. So that's why you need war stories. And my strategy used to be, I'd have 2 or 3 war stories that made me sound really good. They don't even have to be that dramatic. And I made sure, I don't care what they're going to ask me. They can ask me anything in the world. I'm going to tell those 3 war stories. So I made sure I got them in no matter what the question was. Okay, so some specifics now. We're going to talk about some specific scholarships. I'm going to talk briefly about some scholarships in Canada. These days there's a lot of information on the web, so if you follow up the websites you can find a lot of detail. Some general comments first about scholarships. What do scholarship providers want? People who say, I've got a master's scholarship or I've got a PhD scholarship. What are they looking for in general? They want many of the transferable skills that we talked about before. And you need to be starting to get jobs, start volunteering, doing things that put you in a position to boast about your transferable skills that a lot of you have been talking so articulately about today. They want you to be conceptually bright, skillful, able to, to solve problems, to be flexible, to have great theoretical knowledge, okay? And to be skillful. They want you to be hardworking and ambitious, because your ambition is also the ambition of the company or the university or the lab. Academia is very competitive these days. We know that with publications. So someone who runs a lab wants someone who also wants to share in that drive, that desire to create new knowledge. As someone said, to be a scholar over there. Reliable and independent. They know if they ask you to do something, you're going to do it, okay? You're reliable. And they don't have to check up on you all the time. Passionate about learning and improving your skills. I don't know how to do this type of testing in the lab, but I really want to learn. Can you show me? I really want to improve my skills. I'm good at quantitative research. I want to learn qualitative research, or vice versa. Someone who produces work on time, like submitting a paper, and obviously, as I said earlier, a pleasant person to be around who likes working with other people. Some specific scholarships.
These are some of the big scholarships in Canada and in my area, like where I am situated. The Vanier Canada Graduate Scholarships. So these are national scholarships for international students called Vanier Scholarships. Vanier Canada Graduate Scholarships for PhD researcher at a Canadian institution. You've got to nominate an area, either health research, natural sciences or engineering, or social sciences and humanities. It's worth 50,000 Canadian dollars, which is probably about 43,000 US dollars. So 50,000 Canadian US dollars per year for 3 years. The criteria, and these seem to be criteria that are fairly general across scholarship schemes: academic excellence. So your actual record, what are your marks, what are your grades? Academic excellence, research potential. When they see how you've already volunteered in a lab, you already work with the professor out of hours, you know, the brilliance of the idea that you have, what you want to do. In other words, your research potential, and also leadership. This magic word leadership is very big in the English-speaking world. Everyone talks about leadership. Leadership is really the big word that sums up all of the non-academic things and achievements and contributions that you're making. How are you making your community better, for example? Potential and demonstrated ability to be a leader. So for Vanier scholarships, what happens is you apply through individual universities, and you need to look at the university websites to see when the university deadlines are. So the university has a deadline, and then by the 1st of November, the university has a deadline to nominate to the National Vanier Committee. I've got the website there, and Kitasena will be able to share these slides with anyone who wants them to with this information. Okay, so they're PhD scholarships. If any of you are PhD students, Banting postdoctoral fellowships, 70,000 Canadian dollars for 2 years. It's taxable because it's like an income, it's a job for research at a Canadian institution. The same 3 different areas you have to nominate. Criteria. And this time, when you're going for a postdoctoral scholarship, this is, if you want to be a researcher or an academic, this is now teaching you what some of the things you really need to build up on your CV. You can see how the bar is higher, the standard's higher now. You need a very high quality research proposal, a very specific research proposal. What are you going to do in your 2 years as a postdoctoral scholar? Research contributions already. Have you published papers in peer-reviewed journals? I know there are opportunities here at Haramaya University because Kitasena manages 4 journals. There are 4 international journals that are headquarters, that are centred at Haramaya University. But as a PhD student, they're starting to expect you to have published in peer-reviewed scientific journals. What are your leadership contributions? Have you founded any organisations, started any organisations? Have you volunteered? Have you been the president or the secretary of any clubs in your town or in society or at university? So you must submit to the institution first as well between April and September. And then by the 20th of September, they nominate to the National Committee. Okay, more PhD scholarships, Trudeau doctoral scholarships. 3 years at a Canadian institution, up to $40,000 Canadian per year. And because they really want to encourage leadership, and leadership of your communities, and your communities here in Ethiopia, they do potentially offer a further $20,000 of which you can use for extra training in leadership, and also if you want to get extra lessons in French or English, because they're the 2 national languages of Canada. For Trudeau scholarships, you don't apply through a university in Canada. You apply directly through the scheme, through the Trudeau scheme, which is online. Okay.
This time it's focused more on social sciences and humanities, and there are 4 themes. So you have to make sure that your proposal fits in with one or more of these themes: human rights and dignity, responsible citizenship, Canada and the world, and people and their natural environment. And there's an email address for more information, and it closes on the 1st of December. Now, Quebec, as Kitasena said, I come from McGill University, which traditionally has been the most highly ranked university in Canada. It's always been in the top 3. So at McGill University, it's in the province of Quebec and in the city of Montreal. Quebec, as you may know, is a French-speaking province. So the language, the official language in Quebec is French, but the education at McGill University is in English. It's an English-speaking university. The Fonds de Recherche du Québec, that means the Quebec Research Foundation or the Quebec Research Funds. There's 3 different funds for research. There's the Fonds de Recherche du Québec Santé, which means health and medicine. There's the Fonds de Recherche du Québec des Sciences et Technologies, which is technology and science and engineering. And there's the Fonds de Recherche du Québec Société et Culture, which means society and culture. Okay, so it's more like humanities and the social sciences. So you apply to one of those schemes, and they have several master's and PhD scholarships for research at a university in Quebec. Quebec has about 10 universities. McGill is one of them. And that's worth $20 a year, $20,000 a year for master's students, $25,000 a year for doctoral students. And at the beginning of October, that's when those applications need to be in. And there's the website for that. McGill University, my university, has doctoral fellowships for outstanding international candidates called Tomlinson Doctoral Fellowships for PhD research at McGill University in Montreal. 35,000 Canadian dollars per year for a maximum of 2 years. And almost all people, even though you normally spend 3 to 5 years doing a PhD, almost everyone who gets one of these scholarships ends up getting another scholarship for funding for the rest of their PhD scholarship. The internal deadline must come to one of McGill University's departments first. And that department must submit to McGill University by the 22nd of May. Criteria: academic excellence, researchability or potential, the quality of the project that you're anticipating presenting or undertaking when you're at McGill University, reference letters. So that's why you need to be good students, you need to be volunteering with your professors, you need to be sitting at the front, you need to be working hard, you need to put your hand up and ask questions. They need to know what you're doing because you need to have reference letters, okay? You need a letter from your department and you need a letter from your potential supervisor. Sorry, yes, did you want to? And the same applies for the United States as well, but also Europe, of course. Look on the government websites for each individual province or state and individual universities because they have their own schemes. I'm going to leave you with a quote, which I think sums up a lot of what you've shown by coming here and what the young lady before said, the gentleman over there before said. It's by a German poet called Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid, okay? So you'll get your own rewards from being brave, okay? Some things we didn't get time to look at, but you need to start filling out. I mentioned a lot of areas of criteria. Your research potential, you need to start writing those sections now. You need to start writing out your application with humility, with a clear goal of research. You need to have productivity, And with leadership, you need to demonstrate commitment and preparedness to contribute beyond yourself to your communities, show generosity, roles, contributions to improving society, and you need a very strong personal statement. So I want you to go home and reflect on the lessons you've learned today and the new habits that you would like to form. Okay? So remember, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. Thank you for joining, for your sharing. Thank you again, Kirisena and Dr. Abdi too, for the opportunity to share with you.